Hi, welcome to the Israel First television program from our studios in Jerusalem, Israel. Great to have you with us for this week's episode. We are coming to you, bringing you news and bringing you behind the scenes features. And I've got with me my wife, Nathalie. I'm going to have a look at what's been happening in Israel and how you can see things that no other medias are talking about. So, one of the things that has been in the news is the censorship of newspapers or the freedom of speech. And the reason that this is very, very important is because if we don't get a free press, we don't really know what's happening. For example, at the moment we have a ceasefire to some degree, Nathalie, I believe, in the north of Israel, which is the Lebanon border, and then in the south we still are having fighting in Gaza, as far as we know. But the reason I mentioned the free press is that unless we have a free press, unless there is freedom of speech, unless people can report what's actually going on, then we really have a problem, and we end up being in a communist sort of situation where you cannot say the truth, you cannot say what's really happening. Now, this is the title of the news story. Scared for freedom of speech, journalists accuse the Israeli government of muzzling the press. Leader of the opposition, Yair Lapid, who Nathalie and I were in a press conference with, I think not so long ago, accused the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of trying to stifle criticism of the government. Now, all government leaders don't want criticism, and that's not a problem in one way. I mean, every Prime Minister, every president of every country in the world, they don't want to have criticism if possible. They want to look good for political reasons. We're not talking about that. We're talking about when you can't even say anything. That's really what the problem is. Now, he says, stifle criticism of the government. Journalists meet in the Knesset. They met in the Israeli parliament in an emergency conference on freedom of the press. Journalists and opposition lawmakers argued with Communications Minister Shlomo Karhi, who is part of the government, over the government's efforts to overhaul the media market in this December, accusing him and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of working to create a compliant press like that of Vladimir Putin's Russia, which we were mentioning before. We feel that this is what Channel 12 news anchor Orded Ben Ami said. We feel that the free media is under attack, he told the lawmakers, the members of Knesset, in a meeting regarding the onslaught on the freedom of expression. Now, Israel first, so if it's happening here, the attack on the media, then it's happening everywhere across the world, and it's happening where you are. Comparing a country without a free press is like in comparison to a hospital whose doctors do not have access to basic equipment, he said. We are the stethoscope of a democratic state, and if you harm us, you harm the state. The media are the watchmen of society.
I was just thinking about that, yes, totally. Because they are like scrutinizing what's happening, and they should be able to be free to see and to say what they are seeing. But right now,
there's an attack on that, and he said, where journalists are flagged for their political positions, arrests will follow, said Yedi Aharonet journalist Merav Betito, referring to a list circulated by Likud activists in recent days that scored can public broadcast journalists on the basis of their political opinions. In other words, Likud, who is one of the political parties and is in government at the moment, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu being in charge of the Likud party. If you put points on journalists, then it's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing if people say you're left wing, right wing, or course, liberal or whatever. But if you start putting points on people, that is a dangerous direction to go. The list ranked journalists and broadcasters hosting current affairs programs on a scale from 1 to 5, with 1 signifying strong government support and 5 indicating strong opposition. Prominent critics such as Asaf Lieberman, Ronnie Kuberman, Omri Asanaim, and Rina Matsaliak were labelled as government opponents. In response, CAM CEO Yoch Paz issued a rare statement denouncing the list, calling it an ugly and dangerous development. The thing is, this is just one of many things that are happening in the media and really have been happening since COVID, that voices that express any opposition whatsoever to anything are shut down. Yokpaz also highlighted public support for the broadcaster, saying the vast majority of the Israeli public want Kan, which is, I think it's the national news of Israel, Kan News, to continue operating across digital, radio and television platforms, and rejects any attempts to undermine its independence. The Jerusalem Journalists Association also criticised the publication of this list, warning of personal risk to journalists targeted by the list, saying this escalation crosses a dangerous line. We urge the Likud to distance itself from and condemn the list immediately. This labelling and categorisation of journalists marks another step in the erosion of free journalism and the weakening of Israeli democracy. The emergency gathering at the Israeli parliament was organised by, as I said, Yair Lapid, himself a former journalist, to protest a series of moves that critics say is eroding press freedoms, including legislative initiatives to grant the government oversight over television ratings data and privatise the Israel Public Broadcasting Corporation and Army Radio, both of which, in my humble opinion, should not be privatised. Critics, including the Foreign Press Association and the Union of Journalists in Israel, have accused the government of undermining democracy. Michael Asulim, an editor in the Kan News, told the gathering that this is not the first time that the government has taken aim at the public broadcaster, recalling the closure of its predecessor, the Israel Broadcasting Authority, in 2017. I'm scared for freedom of speech, she said. Please don't take my home. In other words, her livelihood and her work. Opening the gathering, Yair Lapid launched into a withering denunciation of the government, accusing them of carrying out a planned, orchestrated attack against the Israeli press. By the way, Israel has fallen 15 spots in Reporters Without Borders annual press freedom index since the government took power in 2022. That's not enough for this government. It wants us to drop even further, Yair Lapid says. Now, you might say, well, Yair Lapid is an opposition leader. Obviously, he wants to damage the government as much as possible. However, we are not talking about just politics here. We're talking about a mass attack across the world, across the globe, on press freedom. And Yair Lapid goes on to say, they tried to appoint a director general at Channel 13 who would work for them, and the government voted unanimously to cancel all its advertising in Haaretz, the Yesh Atid political chairman continued. If they can end government advertising in Haaretz News because of political statements, do you really think they can't halt advertising on Channel 12? If they can legislate against the public broadcasters, they can legislate against Channel 13. Is there anything in the behaviour...
This is all channels in Israel.
Right, these are all... If you're from Israel, then you'll be familiar with these channels. I think maybe they're in Hebrew as well. So it's more difficult for, if you did some research to find out all the things, thanks to translate tools on the internet, we can see a bit about what's happening. Netanyahu's government does not want balance, it wants media like in Hungary or in Russia. Restrained, frightened, submissive, shallow, he asserted. If this current legislation passes without a fight, there will be even more dangerous ways of legislation. In other words, what he's saying, if people don't put up a stand against what's happening with for a stand for freedom of the press. If you don't make a stand for it, things will get worse. They're just waiting to see how we respond, which is a very good insight. It's true. You know, these mechanisms are put into place, and if nobody complains, they get worse. If we don't stop it now together, it won't stop. If we don't fight back now, whoever is silent now, they will be next. The government communications minister entered the meeting late, was questioned reportedly by reporters and lawmakers who demanded answers to what was going on. Now, why is that so important in the middle of a war? I mean, surely, Nathalie, if we're in the middle of a war, why does it matter so much about press freedom? Because how can you report on a war if it's not free? In other words, how can you tell the truth about what's happening? How can you tell an independent observation of what you can see if you're not allowed to? One of the interesting things when I studied journalism was that in war reporting, they say the first casualty of war is the truth. And we need to be those who stand up for freedom of speech. We need to be those who stand up for independent media, because if we don't, then we lose our voice. Then we are just subject to whatever media is thrown at us, our mainstream media.
The amazing thing is, like, because we're with Angel TV, we're able to say freely what we see. But for sure, the Israeli journalist is very hard for them, because they are scrutinized and they are living here and everybody is listening to what they are saying, and the government can really put their thumb on them. And we have the freedom. It's just amazing how, being in Israel, we're still able to say what we want to say. I mean, I know the YouTube is not picking up what we're saying and pushing down our numbers and everything, but at least we are able to say with Angel TV what we want to say right now.
So, you know, we have a window where we're able to come into your homes and tell you what's happening, but how long that window is open, we don't know. One of the important things is, and I need to stress this, is that we do need financial support for what we're doing. Because we're independent, we pay a price, Nathalie. We are not under the government, you know, we're not under these companies or government media or whatever, or the big stations with big funding. We depend on your support. So please consider supporting us, because it's the way that we can keep, whilst this window is open, keep bringing you what's really happening in Israel. What's really happening behind the scenes. I mean, a lot of what's happening, you know, for those who want to know what's happening on the war front, you can look at all the mainstream media, such as Jerusalem Post or the Times of Israel or Israel National News, those kind of websites. You can look at those and see what's happening on a daily basis. But to see what's happening behind the scenes, in my opinion, is much more important, because there are things happening at a very fast rate, and Israel is first in what's happening in the world. But we know that it's going in a direction. We know that this is the preparation, the footsteps of Messiah. We know that we're leading in this direction for his return. So we're getting into the track of that.
You're right, and we know that at the end of the time, when Messiah will come, the wicked will be taken out of the earth. And we can see right now, despite everything, that a lot of the rebels and a lot of the evil people have been taken out one by one, and is carrying on. And like, who knew 2 weeks ago that Syria will fall? I mean, people might have some insight, but we, like the general public, we didn't know that this will happen. And this is very interesting, because we still don't know. Sometimes when you're in the middle of something, you don't know exactly what's happening, because you are in the middle of it, and it's after when the big events happens, suddenly you can say, well, wow, this was what was happening. But sometimes it's difficult, and we can see so many things happening right now, a lot of things, but sometimes it's like, wow, where are we going? Because it's how it is right now. Now, this is very interesting. This is a little, you might not see it, but this is a agarot, and is some money from Israel here, is the 10 agarot. And on that side, you can see the menorah, and behind you see a big kind of a blob, and the blob is what will be Israel, the land of Israel, when is the Messianic time, which is never been before, is more than with the tribes, and is a big Israel, okay? And we have that in our hands every time when we go to pay. And very often the people don't know that what is written there is the future of Israel. And we will see what happened. But this is, I love that we can have the future of Israel is there, is the big land that God has promised to the people of Israel.
Or the greater Israel.
That's it, the greater Israel. And we know that the tribes will come back. So again, it's all part of what is going to happen. We heard few people speaking about a big aliyah coming. I don't know, but I heard few people speaking again about a big aliyah. So it means Jewish people coming here. But we can see a shift, because we can see some who don't want to be here anymore and who are going out of Israel. But the one who are really have a heart for Israel, they are coming here. So we see a lot of things happening.
Yeah, there's a lot of change, because understandably people are concerned about the future, their families, and are moving, are leaving. And then you've got other people who believe that this is this is where it's all going to happen, and where they believe they should be, and so they are coming. So you've got this kind of movement of population at the moment. There's people coming and going, not on huge numbers at the moment, but certainly there is movement. Some companies in America are putting their staff in America rather than in Israel, the Israeli staff, that is. So they're having to transport them. And I think there's even, Nathalie, a weekly plane that goes like on the Sunday and comes back on the Thursday, that takes these executives backwards and forwards. So it's like a commute to New York, I guess, because a lot of Jewish people, a lot of Israelis work in New York. So Nathalie, what have you got for us this week?
I mean, when we see all the things that are happening, and really the fight in the press, what do we need to do? We need to go back to the Torah. We need to go back to the Bible, to the Word, and what He's saying, and what, all the promises of what God is giving. And this morning I was reading the Psalm 84. My gosh, it's so beautiful, and I've never seen that before. I will take that because it really just blew my mind. It said, where I find it? Oh, that's it. So it's Psalm 84, and it's verse 12. For sun and shield is Hashem God. So in Hebrew is Shemesh v'Magen Yehovah Elohim. And it's like, I was like, what? He's our sun. I never see that. We can say, because we can give a lot of attribute to God, and we can say He's a son. And the sun, it gives us life, it gives us nourishment. And a lot of people are discovering that the sun is giving us also energy, direct energy, which is interesting, because sometimes people say, well, they give you the light, but they are discovering that we need the sun. He gave us much more than what we knew before. And it's interesting. But He's also our shield, because the sun can burn us, but He's there as a shield to protect us. So he's like everything. Yeah, I don't know, I was like amazed. We need to meditate on the word, because when we start to meditate on the word, God is changing us inside. It's like a change inside out. Because if you change from outside and nothing is changed inside, it doesn't work like that. We are first of all a neshama. We are first of all a soul who is in a body. So we need to know that we are looking after our soul, and our body follow what we are doing for our soul. So the word of God is restoring us, changing us, and restoring us also. Because sometimes, like before in the psalm is written, those who pass through the valley of weeping, Blackham, is like you will cry, you have resistance, there is something that's happening, but this is transformed into a well-being, which is what is written. And so the well-being is like when we go through something very hard, and we all go through things in life, is because God wants us to be like a bigger vessel of light. And so he's cracking the old skin to give us a new skin. And it hurts, and it's hard. And it's like we have to crack this old body to make our neshama, our soul, bigger, because she can carry more light. And it's just amazing. And the word, not just reading the word, meditating the word, be with him and say, okay, speak to me today. And he will blow your mind. Every day, if you read the word, he will just blow your mind and transform you at the same time.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you read the word, you can also see so much about the last days, the end times, about what's happening in Israel. And it's coming together, the puzzle, we've talked about this before, that there's a puzzle of different things all coming together at the same time.
Yeah, it's a big preparation.
Yeah, and one of the funny things is that this is all happening, like I've spoken about it before, but the company's making huge profits, which is very strange. Normally in a war situation, and for example during the Second World War, companies survived. They managed to get through. It was a very difficult time for most companies to go through that, but to make a big profit and to start to make huge profits, and this is really a problem because there's a lot of people, Nathalie, suffering in Israel. There's a lot of families who are under financial pressure, massive financial pressure with the situation. Now, the war's financial toll is only getting worse, said Pa Monim Aid Company. Since the holidays, that's the holidays of Tabernacles, and we're coming up to the holiday of Hanukkah. Since the last holidays...
Festival of Light,
right.
We'll carry more light. If we let him prepare ourselves, we'll be able to carry more light. It's beautiful.
We since the holidays, we've seen a significant increase of families coming to us each week, turning to the organisation for help. Since the holidays, we've seen over 250 families a week turning to the organisation. These families have been coming for the mentoring programme, which is they mentor people on budgeting, on how to budget as a family. Now listen to this, this is very interesting. The average debt of the families coming to the organisation has also been increasing. You know that wherever you are across the world, the cost of products, the cost of shopping, the cost of buying things has massively increased.
Somebody was telling me about that, and it's like suddenly, I don't know, it makes me looking more at the reality, saying, think like the last century. There was never as much money as we have now. But we have a lot of money, but we have to pay a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not like that. And it's like we've been slowly be used to it, but it was not like that.
It said the average debt of the families coming to the organisation, that's in Israel, has been increasing. reaching an average of around 100,000 shekels. That's approximately $27,400 per family. That's debt. That's not income. That's money that they owe. This debt is much higher for some. This is just the average. In other words, some people's debt is even much more than that. She said, mentioning a family, Pananim mentioned a family, came to the organisation for help with a debt of 350,000 shekels, which is $96,000. And not just that, they have a 700,000 shekel mortgage to pay. So they have all this debt, and then they have this mortgage, and people are getting swamped in it. Some families are on the verge of bankruptcy with debt collection processes against them, and this is in Israel. So, and we know that this is happening across the world. That people are under massive financial pressure. We know that that's for everybody, but people here, and we've talked about this before, are suffering, and the war has exacerbated that, with a lot of men having to do reserve.
It's very interesting what you're saying, because again, I was reading, it's like a commentary for the Bible, and they were speaking about every Shemitah, which is 7 years, is like the debts are cancelled. When you see all the commandments that God has given to Israel, it was done with such compassion for the people to not be in the verge of distress. And like I know some people are committed suicide because of that, because of this pressure. And when, let us pray that God, we want to see his kingdom coming with his justice.
Mm-hmm.
Because his justice was always full of compassion. And the world now is just evil. There is so much evil, bringing so many families to the brink of distress.
Right.
And some committed suicide because of that. Is totally without the law of God.
We need God's justice.
Yes.
And the Bible justice, the Torah justice.
Yes.
And like Nathalie was saying, that debts being written off after 7 years is just normal, that, because it becomes chains and weighs people down, and it's not righteous to have that system.
And it's amazing to see how reading, because sometimes when we read just the Bible, it's more difficult to understand the context and all. But when you have commentaries and you read and you see the inside of the compassion of God, it's like, okay, we're serving a good God.
Now, if you want to see a daily news story, we do a daily news story, and you can get that on our Substack, which is available on the website. Go to the media page and press on news, and you will be able to subscribe to the Substack, which really helps us, by the way, when you subscribe. Don't forget what I was saying about financial support. That really makes a huge difference. That makes it possible for us to do this program, and you can go to the website again in www.israelfirst.org and visit the donate page, or if you have any questions about donations, please contact us at info@israelfirst.org. And remember, we're the program that looks at the land, the people, and the language.